Welcome to another edition of the Voice of Palestine, Voice of Palestinian People. It's December 26, 2013, and I'm your co-host, Hanna Qawas. This week we are interviewing Mazin Qumsiyeh, a Palestinian author and a professor from Beit Sahour, Palestine. Mazin will talk with us about Christmas in Bethlehem this year, the development of the Palestinian popular resistance actions in the occupied Palestinian territories, and the current role of the Palestinian Authority, or so-called Palestinian Authority. Good evening to you, Mazin, and welcome again to the Voice of Palestine.
Thank you for having me on your show, Hanna.
There is the first thing I was struck with when I was watching the Christmas Eve and Christmas Day in Bethlehem was all these, it looked to me unusual, all these decorations and etc. Could you tell us how this came around? It looks like, the image is that, Palestinian people have the money and the ability to spend. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Well, what happened this year is this Christmas is the first Christmas we have after the elections for the municipal councils, which changed the mayorship of the municipality from previously being controlled by left parties to one controlled by Fatah. And the U.S. And other Western donors have refused to give a lot of money to Bethlehem in the past because the Bethlehem municipality was leftist. Mm-hmm. And this time they were happy to donate, so U.S. aid gave the Bethlehem municipality a large sum of money. I think it's $400,000 just for the decorations and the activities around Christmas. And this was an unprecedented amount of money to be spending in Bethlehem this year. And there was things with U.S. aid on them everywhere. We, the Palestinian activists, actually tried to put the message out that U.S. aid is not welcome. The U.S. is the largest sponsor of apartheid here. And we even took one of the trees in the manger square and decorated it with the remnants of what Israel uses on us, like tear gas grenades and stun grenades and so on. But the Palestinian Authority police removed these items promptly. Mm-hmm. But in any case, this is the politics of Christmas here. Nevertheless, we did have a happy holiday for us to recognize that this is the birthplace of Jesus, the Prince of Peace, and we hope that next year will bring peace instead of these walls and the apartheid regime that continues with U.S. support.
Mm-hmm. And also it's significant because I read somewhere that there is 27 settlements surrounding Bethlehem, Beit Sahour, and Beit Jala. Is that correct, Mazin?
Yes, there is about, I don't know the exact number now, but it's 24 to 27 settlements, plus some 24 outposts, which are small settlements or settlements in the making. Mm-hmm. We have to remember Bethlehem is surrounded now and squeezed. We are actually allowed to develop on only 13% of the district land of Bethlehem, and 87% of the district is controlled by settlements and security zones and so on. And this 13% is increasingly being surrounded by a wall that's 8 to 10 meters high. And we were gratified that some churches like St. James in London chose to highlight the fact that Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus, is being squeezed and isolated in such a fashion as they built a replica in London of the wall that's 8 meters to 10 meters high.
That's really significant, and lots of more churches are getting on board, especially with the BDS movement. Like here in Canada, we have the United Church that's adopting a campaign, and you can find it on their website. But having said that, it seems you think there is a shift in American policy. You said, one of the reasons they giving now money because Fatah in power now rather than the left on the thing. But, do you think there is a shift in they are getting sick with the Israeli policy? And because I don't know if you've seen also the article in the Washington Post about Bethlehem. Usually the media follows the policy of the government in the U.S. It's corporate controlled in the U.S. But the article wasn't bad, in general, except for a few things. But have you seen it? And do you think there is a bit of, something on the horizon that the Americans are really looking at Israel as a burden, like as an asset?
Well, Israel has always been a burden, and the American policymakers and American citizens even realize that Israel is a burden and is basically costing the U.S. taxpayers billions of dollars and basically sullying the reputation of the U.S. because the U.S. is supporting this apartheid regime. The more relevant question is, why is it that American government continues to act as Israel's lawyer in international arena in the United Nations? Why does the U.S. still use its veto power to protect Israel from international law? I think American politicians realize that they are the ones who are, put in power and left in power by the Zionist lobby. So they obey whatever the lobby tells them, even though in their mind they know that this is not correct and not right. Many of them simply obey and have become occupied mentally, if I can use that term. So no, I do not see that politicians like Obama or the senators or the congressmen who are subject to the influence of the lobby are going to change their tune. I do see a shift in public opinion, I'm sure, from the public, and as you said, also the churches and so on. And this is certainly something that I am very optimistic about, because eventually the politicians will come around. As happened with South Africa, usually the politicians are the last group to come around. After the media, the corporations, and the people are all changed, the politicians are usually the last group that comes around. No, I agree totally with you. I don't see anything in the horizon, and you explained really why they're pouring all this money, basically because they feel that to keep the Palestinian quiet, not just for the celebration, but also for all these hundreds of millions of dollars they're giving to the authority. They want basically, like General Dayton said, the security of Israel, and that's their main objective. Yes, indeed. And what I see is happening, we should probably focus on the positive side instead of worrying about what these politicians are doing or not doing. I usually think what changed positively in the world historically and how did it change. How did the woman get the right to vote in Western countries only in the 1920s? How did we get civil rights movements in the U.S.? How did we get to end the war in Vietnam? How did we get to affect...
Sorry, we had a bad connection, so we phoned Mazin again. Mazin, we were talking about, the role of the U.S. and the politicians, our Palestinian politicians in Palestine, and you were saying that we should emphasize really on the positive. Could you take it from there, please?
Yes. So, for example, the president of the Palestinian Authority went to South Africa for the funeral of Mandela and said at the time that he's against a general boycott of Israel. He's for a boycott of the settlements or the settlement products. But of course, that's not how a challenge to an apartheid regime happens, and it cannot work in the case of Israel to boycott just the settlements because it's an integrated economy. Mm-hmm. The Palestinian Authority tried to catch that later and correct it with some statements that they issued that said basically they support civil society's actions that they take. Yeah. But they, as an authority set up per the Oslo Accords, have to follow what they need to follow. Yeah. But anyway, my opinion is that the people in South Africa who are engaged in boycotts and the churches in South Africa and the BDS movement globally have decided to accept what the Palestinian civil society have told them. Mm-hmm. And what we have told them is we would like a boycott of this regime until it allows the refugees to return to their homes and lands, and it implements international law, ends the occupation, and provides equality. This is all we are asking for, and until this happens, that's what we demand. We are demanding a boycott, a general boycott of Israel. And thankfully, this has been spreading. And as we saw with the American Studies Association and the Native American Studies Association and the churches, this is significant moves towards a boycott of Israeli academia, a boycott of Israeli universities that are participating in the occupation and colonialization of Palestine. Mm-hmm. So we are optimistic that these are moving in the right direction.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'd like to go back to the Christmas in Bethlehem. Could you give us some, background about, we hear that it's really difficult for people to get in Bethlehem. I don't know if you heard Ma'an had a news item that said Israel denied 5 Arab ministers to enter to Bethlehem, and I'm sure many Christians from Palestine, whether from inside Israel or from Jerusalem, couldn't make it to Bethlehem. Could you tell us about these restrictions?
Well, it's not just that Palestinians and others cannot get to Bethlehem because of the isolation of Bethlehem, but it's also the other way around. Mm-hmm. We Palestinians in Bethlehem cannot get to the rest of the world because of the Israeli restrictions. Mm-hmm. I, as a Palestinian, I'm not even allowed to go to Jerusalem, which is only 5 miles away from Bethlehem. Mm-hmm. This is the reality of the apartheid regime. Mm-hmm. But this is not the only violation of human rights. This is violation of freedom of movement. Yeah. Basically, every item in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is violated by the State of Israel. The right of worship, the right of freedom of movement, the right to live in your own home, the right not to be killed or injured unjustly, all are being violated, and many, many others. Even on Christmas Eve, December 24th, Israel demolished Palestinian homes in the Jordan Valley, attacked Gaza, and destroyed many places and killed a 3-year-old girl and injured her mother and aunt. Mm-hmm. This is the kind of thing that we see daily. Even on Christmas Eve, that was the gift of Israel to the Palestinian population. This is our reality that we live in. This is what we demand to end, basically this horrible reality that the world continues to watch and let Israel get away with it. We demand the world to finally wake up and push Israel to end this basically crime against humanity that they are engaged in.
Yeah, and really the West in general, especially, I mean, specifically the governments in the West, are enabling these war crimes, really, because, you know, even what they're doing in the occupied territories is totally against the Fourth Geneva Convention, and it is classified as a war crime, what they are doing. What do you think?
Well, yes, and not only is it recognized as such, it is also the International Court of Justice, which ruled that basically the colonial settlements in occupied Palestinian territories and the wall that Israel has built around places like Bethlehem, that these certainly violations of the Fourth Geneva Convention, and certainly are recognized by the International Court as a crime against humanity. So indeed this is true, but the question is really, what is it that we as individuals, as your listeners and others, what is our duty and what is our responsibility? Is it just to say that these are crimes, or is it to act and do something, like engage in boycott, divestment, sanctions, writing to the media, mainstream media and elsewhere, putting things on Facebook and social networking, or doing other things to help the people who are suffering. And whether it is in Palestine or elsewhere, when there are people suffering, we have to engage as individuals. It's our duty and our responsibility, especially when our governments certainly support this. The Canadian government, for example, certainly supports the apartheid regime of the State of Israel.
Yeah, actually we have a petition online. We urge people to sign it because, you know, Mr. Harper is going to visit the region, you know, Jordan, the West Bank and Israel, and basically we're telling him he's not welcome, and the Canadians are saying not in our name. So we urge people, whether in Palestine or in Canada or anywhere in the world, to sign this petition. It's on causes, so people could just maybe inquire about, put Harper's name and they'll get it on causes. Yeah, because he's unconditionally, the same way like the American administration really unconditionally supporting Israel. You know, Netanyahu says jump, and Obama and Harper say how high, you know. I mean, clearly it's their policy on the Middle East is made in Tel Aviv, you know. So, you know, you are American citizen also, you know, and I think you feel responsible towards the American people that this aid is really hurting the strategic interest of the U.S.
Yes, indeed, and not only that, but you know, if any American citizen can see reality here, they change their mind, and we bring tourists here to see the reality of occupation, colonization, and the American public is starting to also wake up and ask, why are we sending us billions of dollars to this apartheid state that is using it to oppress another people? I mean, it's totally illogical for me, a U.S. citizen, also happen to be Palestinian, that I cannot enter Jerusalem, or even people who are born and raised in Jerusalem are refugees now and cannot return to their Jerusalem, whereas any Jew in the world or convert to Judaism can go to Jerusalem, get automatic citizenship in the State of Israel, and live on stolen Palestinian land. This is unprecedented in world history to have this kind of racism and discrimination practiced by a state that Western leaders keep saying is a democracy.
Yeah, actually, I talked earlier about the Washington Post article, and I commented on it. They totally ignored the fact that Israel doesn't allow Palestinian Christians to return even to Bethlehem, to Area A. In my post, I said I'd love to go back to my hometown and live and die there, but Israel is not allowing me. And this is, many people don't know that Israel is not allowing even Palestinian Christians or Muslims to go back even to the Palestinian Area A place where it's ruled by so-called authority, the Palestinian Authority.
I mean, I think the information is out there, and people do know the information.
Yeah.
And if they don't know, they can certainly look it up. I don't think we are short on information.
Yeah.
What we are short on is action and the ability of people to act. And we encourage people certainly to act on this. And we see this with the churches that are listening to the Palestinian Christian call, like the Kairos document that was released, Kairos Palestine. I encourage people to look it up, kairospalestine.ps, and see what the Palestinian Christians in the Holy Land have called for, which is an end to occupation, end to apartheid, and for the churches around the world to get involved with us to bring an end to this injustice.
Yeah, I remember it's called the Bethlehem Call, Kairos, the Palestine, the Bethlehem Call, and it's a really worthwhile document, and I think it affected and influenced many other churches. Like I said, the delegation from the United Church went to Palestine, and they saw with their own eyes, and this is why they came back and they called for a boycott of the settlements product, which is a first step. I think it's important to realize that it's a first step, but I think it's important to boycott all aspects of Israel till it abides by international law. So when I talked about really the Washington Post article, I just wanted to show how they choose to omit certain facts, and not blame Israel for anything. And that was part of it, that they, by omission, by saying, Israel doesn't allow Palestinians to go, Palestinian Christians, let's be more specific, to go back to Bethlehem. All they do is cry over, crocodile tears about Palestinian Christians. Why they're not pressuring Israel to allow Palestinian Christians to go back and live in their hometown. So this was my point, really, Mazin. And I think, people could find it, like you said, all these facts, they could find them on the internet, because, nobody nowadays count on the corporate media to get their information from. So I'll just want to give you, final word. I know you had a rough weekend and a rough Christmas in general, but if you also could tell us, in this final word, how are Palestinian people in general resisting, and the role of the popular resistance in resisting this brutal regime and brutal occupation, because I think it's important for people to know what's happening and then act accordingly to support these actions.
Well, if you say final words are very hard to say, because we are in the middle of celebration of the birth of a baby in Bethlehem, this baby Jesus that grew up to send a message to the world. What was this message? This message had to do with justice, had to do with human rights, had to do with peace. These are not just words that should be just uttered and spoken. They should be acted upon. I do not think it's fair to ask people to just say they support human rights. I think it is fair for us to say that anybody who believes in those things and truly in their heart, especially in this season of giving, season of taking care of each other as fellow human beings, the message is not just to say these words and to believe them in our hearts, but to also act on them. And we Palestinians, of course, have acted on them. I myself was, participating in demonstrations, was arrested a few times, and all Palestinians who remain here, of course, in this Holy Land, struggle to make a living, to survive under the situation, and to resist mostly by popular resistance, by unarmed methods, and by engaging in the hundreds and hundreds of forms of these nonviolent resistance, from petition writing to civil disobedience to demonstrations to boycotts and so on. Mm-hmm. So what we ask is that the world is also get engaged with us in action and not just mere words. Yeah. This is basically my message, and this is my hope and my prayer for this Christmas season.
And really we appreciate all the work you are doing, Mazin, and keep up the good work. And could you tell us your website, because there is lots of information on your website, so for people who want more details about what's happening in Palestine and follow up with what the popular resistance is doing inside the West Bank and the Palestinian occupied territories, you cover it quite well. Could you, I believe it's qumsiyeh.org, is it?
Yes, it's QUMSIYEH.org.
Yeah, so for people who wanna, and people can get your weekly, I guess, post if they can join. You have a email list there on your website.
Yeah. And they can network with me.
Sure, they can do that, and they can get an updated information every week about what's happening and the popular resistance inside Palestine. Again, I thank you, Mazin, for being with us, and really it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and keep up the good work. Have a good night. Yeah.
Thank you. God bless you.
Bye. Bye.
And that was Hana Kawas talking with Mazin Qumsiyeh from Beit Sahour, Palestine. And with that, we conclude another edition of the Voice of Palestine. I've been your co-host, Marian Kawas, and our final piece of music is by Jewish-American singer David Rovics, entitled Christmas Eve in Bethlehem. We dedicate it to the Palestinian people yearning to return to their homeland next year in a free Palestine and a free Bethlehem.
Church bells are ringing, families are wearing their Sunday best, choirs are singing, red sun is setting in the west, a soldier is yelling, standing tall, checkpoint is closing, outside a giant wall, it's Christmas Eve. In Bethlehem, tourists are coming, birthplace of Jesus, a call to port, now they are leaving, they say you should keep it short, shop floors are empty, there's no one there, checkpoint is closing, the manger square, it's Christmas Eve. In Bethlehem, those Christians who stay here what the